Welcome to part 3 of the Devbytes series, Making Apps Beautiful. I'm Anchor Cotwell. Thus far we've been focused on making our list reader app beautiful on phones, but we haven't really looked at the tablet side of things. So let's see if we just take that app that we've been using so far and put it on a tablet. Let's see what it looks like. So we have an Nexus 10 here with the app running, and you'll see it's not particularly attractive at all. There's all this wasted white space on the right hand side, and then when I go into the detail view, the text is going edge to edge. Sure, the fonts are nice and we've modernized it with an action bar, but this isn't a great tablet experience. So let's switch back to the slides. Let's talk about what we can do, and really the obvious thing to do in this situation is to implement a two-pane UI. So we're going to go from something like what you see here to something like this, where we have both the list items on the left-hand side and the detailed items on the right-hand side. The way we're going to do that is we're going to try and basically keep or reuse as much of the code as possible. We don't want to write a phone version and a tablet version of the apps. That's not how you build Android apps. So we're going to use a little trick that we called XML references. So let's look at the code on my machine here. We have our two activities, the list activity and the detail activity. But you'll notice we've also got a layout here for a two-pane activity. Now, one way to load this is that when we load the initial activity, the list activity, we could just at that point work out whether we're a tablet or not, and load the two-pane layout. We're not going to do that. We're going to use this nice references, this XML references trick that I particularly like. So we're still going to load activity article list as our layout, but we're going to specify this refs XML file, and that name isn't special. We're just calling it that. But what is special is we're going to chuck it in a directory called values smallest width 600 dip land. The smallest width 600 dip basically tells us that this is a tablet. That's a metric that we use. The land tells us we're in landscape mode. So in landscape mode on a tablet, we're going to load this refs.xml, and this file has the activity article list, and what we're saying is if you refer to a layout called activity article list, instead of returning what's already there in your resource folder, return a different layout. So load this layout here, activity article two-pane. So again, we've done it all in XML without actually having to change any Java, and we'll get the right layout, we'll get the two-pane layout, which is great. But we're not done yet, because we actually need to make one more change, which is when the user selects an item from that list view, we shouldn't launch another activity into that detailed view. What we should be doing is selecting or replacing that right-hand fragment. So what we're going to do is actually in our activity, in our article list activity, we're going to work out if we're in two-pane mode. There's multiple ways you can do this, so we're not going to go into it in a great amount of detail. But once you know if you're working in two-pane mode, all you're doing is basically when the list item is selected, you're going to get your fragment manager and replace that detail fragment with the relevant one. If you're in single pane mode, you're just going to go and call the start activity. So on phones, we'll start a new activity. On tablets, we'll just replace that fragment on the right-hand side. Simple as that, we have our two-pane UI. Of course, this is all based on the assumption that you are already using fragments. If you're not using fragments in your app already, I think you're making a mistake. It's really important that you do so. It allows you to make these apps really flexible depending on the form factor, and you'll see we did it with minimal effort. So let's switch back to our slides, and what we'll see now, we've got our nice two-pane UI, great. But one thing that's still lacking here is spacing. That those margins that we specified on either side for the detail view, they don't seem as applicable for a tablet. And in fact, even our list view seems a little bit squashed, or more so than it should be. So what we're going to do is actually, we're going to go and override some of those values for tablets. So switching back to the code, you'll recall that we had a dimensions XML file that we'd specified for our list views. We'd had some top and bottom margins, and for our detailed view, we had some margins on either side. what we're going to do is specify another dimensions file for tablets, 600 dip, and we don't care whether it's portrait or landscape. We're going to use these dimensions, and instead of 8 and 16, we're going to go 16 dips vertically for margin for the list view, and 80 dips on either side. So now let's switch back to slides and see what that would actually end up achieving. This is what we have now. When we put those new margins in, we've got much better spacing vertically between our list items on the left and on either side in the detailed view as well. So with that being said, we've now come to the end of this checkpoint, which is, this is where we started with our tablet app, not very attractive at all, and this is where we've come to. So the next part, we're going to focus on performance tuning.